Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today we are going to be taking a look at Cyberpunk 2077 Gangs of Night City, and I'll be bringing to you my full review. I'm not only going to be talking about the base game, but I am also going to be talking about the expansions and Kickstarter content as well. I'm going to talk about everything that exists for this game currently, because I feel like there are a lot of reviews out there that are only talking about the base game, and I feel like if you want to get a more complete review of what this game can offer, you have to look at the expansion content and the different modules that are included, because they have a big impact on your gameplay experience. So I wanted to take all of that into consideration. If you guys like what you see here, be sure to subscribe, stick around, click that bell for alerts. We also have a $25 Amazon gift card giveaway going on right now. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. And hopefully you will stick around. There's going to be lots more Cyberpunk content in the very near future. There are a lot of Cyberpunk games just on the horizon. So this is not the only show in town for Cyberpunk gaming, but it is a difficult game for me to review in an unbiased fashion, because I am a very big fan of Cyberpunk 2077, the video game. So when Cyberpunk content comes out, I feel like I'm a little biased. And that's going to be one of the challenges that I have to face when doing this review is, can I look at the game in more of an objective way and give you my thoughts removed from the fact that I love the IP and I love the world that it's in. And that's what I'm aiming to do here. So hopefully you enjoy what you see. Let's go ahead and jump into the video.
So at its core, Cyberpunk 2077 Gangs of Night City is an area control game where you are taking control of one of the gangs of Night City and using their vast talents to acquire victory points in the form of street cred. You're going to be doing this with a lot of different mechanics, area control being one of them, but also economy and actions, action discs, a little bit of push your luck, hidden card-based combat, and even a little bit of set collecting. It does a lot of different mechanics in a couple of different ways. Players will take turns moving 2 action discs from the top section down to the bottom section. This is their activate phase, where they can use 1 or 2, but typically you use 2. And you'll be moving these action discs down to move units of a certain type around the board. For example, if I wanted to activate techies, I would move this token down. Techies happen to have an octagonal base, which matches the octagon symbol here, and square base units, for example, are my net runners. Will have a square base. They will match the square based token, and a pentagonal based for your solos, for example. So the iconography makes sense. It matches up to the symbol that you're using. You also have the ability to build more hideouts by picking up tokens here and eventually revealing victory points, buying new combat cards, and a wild disc that can have you do any action you want, even when you've already done. And then you'll pass to the next player. You will go round and round, each player doing 1 to 2 actions at a time. During your turn, if you do not wish to take any further actions, or if you don't have any actions you can take, as long as you've got at least 1 or 2 down here, you can do a reclaim step, which will push all of these back up and allow you to claim presence and dominance rewards in your district. Those are how you're going to get more money and victory points and currency, and that's where the area control aspect, or at least that's one of the ways in which area control will come into play. And then you can also recruit new units at your various hideouts that you've been building throughout Night City. This is an asymmetric powers game, so all of the different gangs will have their own dashboard, and while they do, for the most part, have the same action discs available to them, they will also have different abilities that will be talked about on each card, and in some cases, they will have special tokens that only that gang will have. Players will track their victory points in the form of street cred along the top of the board. Most games wrap up around 25 street cred, although there is a little bit of overflow. In addition to gaining district rewards, there's other ways to gain victory points, and we'll talk about those in the form of opportunities, edge runners, and more. Players will have the opportunity to purchase up to 3 different edge runners throughout the course of the game, although 2 are only shown at any given time. So you'll have to buy one to see what else comes out next. When a player purchases one for the indicated amount of eddies or euro dollars, basically the bucks of the game, they'll grab that miniature, put their base on there, indicating that now he belongs to the red gang, and we'll deploy him at one of their hideouts. They'll take the card, be able to do whatever it says. In this case, Atom Smasher here helps with combat, but there are other edge runners that will help you gain victory points and do a variety of different things, whether it's deals with currency, actions, or victory points, or combat, or a lot of different things. But there's a pretty good amount that give you victory points in the form of street cred. There's also an opportunity deck that players can potentially purchase opportunities from. Now, these are going to be purchased with contraband, which is a different type of currency that one gets from district rewards, as well as some other methods. And they usually have some type of requirements. There are some that have no requirements, and then there are some that require presence or dominance. And presence is having a miniature there, dominance is having the most miniatures there, and a hideout. So some of them are harder to get than others. They typically will reward you victory points for having multiple of the same color. So the more orange opportunities I seize, the more victory points I will get, and that can eventually lead to a possible runaway leader situation if people just allow you to seize any opportunities that you want. But sometimes they'll also give you bonus currency or even additional victory points on top of that. But these are pretty much just straight victory points, and it's kind of a set collecting method, because while there are multiple different colors, for example, once you buy one at the end of your turn, then this one comes out. Well, now there's 2 purples in here, so maybe I want to start going for purple, but you never know what's going to come out. So it's limited set collecting because you have very little knowledge of what is going to come out afterwards. Net running is another way that you can earn victory points. Players will be able to use their net runners to move down the net running track, and it's a little bit of a push your luck game, because the farther down the track you go, the more victory points you can potentially earn, but then you have to roll 2 6-sided dice. And for example, when I'm in the red, if I get a 7 or lower, I will lose all of my net runners. So there's some penalties for a dice roll that can come out, but you're usually only moving 1 or 2 spaces at a time. You'd have to have a lot of net runners to be able to move more than that. And you don't get the bonuses for any spaces you pass through. You only get the bonuses for the space that you decide to land on, moving up to the number of net runners that you happen to have. So while it's a little bit of a push your luck ability, you're only doing it once per action. So it's not like you can continue to keep going and going and going. It's very kind of a slow push your luck mechanic. There's 3 different types of currency in the game. We have eddies, which are euro dollars used to purchase new hideouts as well as higher edge runners. You have contraband used for seizing opportunities, and you have corporate secrets, which is another thing that you can get from net runs. These are effectively wild currency that can be used for either eddies or contraband, and also they have some extra uses. For example, Sandra Dorset here, the edge runner, also allows you to spend corporate secrets to gain extra victory points. Now, firefights or combat is definitely something that happens a lot in this game. Once you move a solo character into a zone, you can start a firefight, and at most, typically only 1 character will die in a firefight. You're going to use these cards. They all have the combat back. Every player starts with the exact same 4 cards, but one of your actions is to upgrade a combat card by looking at 2 cards. You can choose one and put it into your hand, swapping it out with one of your starting 4, or any card you want. You can swap out a new card if you want. It's a great way to upgrade these, and basically you're going to choose a card in secret, set it down. Your opponent will, or everybody who's in the zone will do the same thing, because you can have big multi-person firefights, which is something I think is very, very cool and clever about this game, and the way that some of these cards will also reward you with victory points, regardless of whether or not you win. You can potentially play a Cyber Psychosis card, which will have you go start a firefight or be involved in a firefight, and give you a victory point if you have nobody left alive at the end. So it allows you to kind of send one guy in there on a suicide mission, so to speak, and have him earn you some reputation, earn you some street credentials, street cred. That's not credentials, right? Street credit, I think. But yes. And then, of course, everybody has one 3-gun symbol. Now, we're going to be comparing. Once everybody reveals their cards, you're going to compare gun symbols, and whoever has the highest is the winner. Whoever doesn't have the highest is not the winner, and then all must lose 1 miniature of their choice from the zone. So that's, but this is common knowledge what everybody starts with. When you upgrade cards, you can say, you know what, I picked this 4-gun one that has some specialty abilities, and they overwrite some of the rules, and I want to get rid of this one, so that one will go away, and these are going to be the 4 cards that I have now. Of course, when you play a card, it's gone, it's going to go in a discard pile. When you run out of cards, you can get them back. So it's got a little bit of like a deck building aspect with this hidden card aspect as well. There's some secretiveness to the card that you pick, and it's also secret what cards you discard. I like this aspect of the game, and I wish that it was developed further. I also want to talk about stories, because this game has stories, and think of this story as the game that you're going to play each time is going to be a little bit different. There's sort of mutators that go to the base game and allow you to add some modifications and new rules. There will be a story deck where you can, if you're interested in the narrative, you can read all of that, and this will tell you how to basically set up the deck. There's 3 sections for story cards at the top of the game board, and these will basically tell you what happens. And this one is, you place some special tokens on certain victory point markers, and when players cross over those, then you release new policy cards, and the policy cards will change the rules a little bit. So it adds a little bit of randomness to the game. So that's one story you can play. Net Protection is another story that adds some different modifiers to the way net running works and to the way the opportunities work, which is a pretty interesting thing. There's also Night City Tour, which I think is a pretty interesting one, because it adds a lot more randomness to the game. Night City Tour, for example, lets you take, these Night City Tour cards. There's a lot of them, and you're going to shuffle them, and you're going to do 3 of them. And once you do one and you complete what it says, you go to the next one, and you go to the next one after that. And once that 3rd card is done, then game ends, regardless of how many victory points people are at. Whoever's in the lead will win at that point. So it can totally change. You can have somebody win with only 10 victory points if they've went through these different things. And it can be everything from destroying drones to having firefights to buying opportunities to doing net runs and everything in between. And I said I was going to talk about different expansions, because this one has so many different cards involving so many different aspects of the game. A lot of the expansions are going to have extra cards that get shuffled into the Night City Tour deck. So if you're interested in the Motor Pool expansion, for example, there will be a Motor Pool card that goes in here that references vehicles that you don't have to use if you're not playing with vehicles. So there's every new module, every new mechanic has some kind of Night City Tour card that makes this deck even bigger and bigger, and it increases the randomness of what you're going to play. And you can play any story you want in this game. And so if you don't want the randomness, you can play with something that's a little bit more straight victory points. You can play the tutorial if you want to just play to 15 victory points, if you want a quicker game. There are a lot of different modules, a lot of different of these story elements, and there's some I haven't even played yet. But there are very cool options within these, and they allow you to either play one you haven't played yet and have some mysteries revealed throughout the game, or they allow you to just pick one that fits you and your group's play style. And they're basically just subtle mutators. You can go for just a standard game, a slightly modified game, or a wildly random game. It's up to you when you choose the story.
So that's a look at sort of how the game flows. It is definitely sort of a mechanic salad. It's got a lot of different types of rules, a lot of different callbacks to other games with the deck building aspect, the cardless combat, the area control, the push your luck mechanics, the set collecting. It's got a lot of different things that a lot of other games do. And I think that's one of my criticisms of the game, is that there's a lot of other games that do those mechanics better, and none of them are really, really good, and but none of them are also really, really bad. I think the net running is my least favorite part of the game. It's just a little too simplistic and doesn't offer enough depth, and it just feels like, okay, I'm just going to move down one space, and then I'm good, and then I get a victory point. It's like, kind of feels like a boring turn when you do net running sometimes. And so, it's not great. Now, fortunately, there are some ways to mitigate that. Like one of the stories that you can play has an alternative net run track that gives a little bit more, makes that a little more dynamic. So there's ways to make some of those aspects that you're not crazy about a little bit better. I've seen the opportunity deck come up with like 3 of one color, and somebody happened to start off with extra extra contraband, was able to buy, 3 of the same color by like the second or third round, and ended up having run away with the win because the cards came out a certain way. Similarly, there are stories, that same story that has an alternative net run option has an alternative way to run the opportunity deck where the cards are now face down, and so you don't know. You kind of have to do certain things to get a peek at those, or you can buy them blind. And so, like, it's pretty cool the way that the stories can affect some of the perceived weaknesses of the game engine itself, but still, those weaknesses aren't that bad. I'd have to say that really, while the problems aren't that bad, the strengths aren't that great. I think the biggest strength is that the game is visually very attractive. It has beautiful miniatures, it has beautiful card art, and it's the world of Night City, which I'm already a big fan of. So personally, I think when looking at the base game, I would probably give it a good 8 out of 10, but that's because I'm a big fan of Cyberpunk 2077. I think without that, it probably ranks somewhere around a 6.5 out of 10, because the gameplay is decent, but other games do more specific things better. If you're looking for a game that does a little bit of a lot of mechanics, then this one definitely does it. It does remind me in a lot of ways of the Godfather game that Simon has done, with some of the pseudo area control. It's not like super area control. It'd be nicer if combat was a little more meaningful. Like, I love the hidden card-based combat, and then the way to upgrade your hand, and the way that, like, you can win but still lose, and you can lose but still win. And I like that, but for the most part, combat only has you losing a single miniature. So if somebody has like 4 or 5 minis in a zone, you're not taking that zone from them. You can't do that many firefights. It's just not going to happen. And so it's, I wish there was a little more to it. There may be some stories that I haven't played yet that, I know there's a Kang Tao story that he definitely has certain weapons that can do more damage than that. So some of those things can be addressed with stories. But for the most part, I like the combat aspect. It's just, I wish there was a little bit more. And I feel like that kind of summarizes the game's engine as a whole, is that a lot of this stuff has great potential, but I feel like it could have been developed just a little bit more. Now, I do also want to talk about expansions and modules and extra content for the game. So the first part of the review was just like the core game, and I feel like I've got criticisms based on how Simon kind of delivered all of this, considering there's a stretch goal or a stretch goal content and all of the extra gangs and the Kickstarter exclusives and all of the extra gangs that you'll get from all the expansions. So the expansions add a ton of new stuff, and there's a whole lot of good and some gripes of mine too. So let's talk about those.
So I want to talk about the miniatures. There's a lot of miniatures in the Kickstarter edition. There's a lot of edge runners that are, while gorgeous, also really frustrating because they give you this typical Simon insert that is just this large collection of miniatures that are just side by side in this big row and columns of miniatures that all look the same at a distance. And you'll get a card that says, oh, you've got to find steel, and you're like looking through 100 miniatures trying to find the right one, and that's frustrating. So I did paint all of mine. I gave them a quick paint job. I didn't give them incredibly good paint jobs, but I also painted the bases of mine, so this way at a glance I could easily tell, oh, okay, he's a solo because solos are orange. That's one thing they did very good, is the color coding and the iconography on this game all makes a lot of sense. It makes it easier to identify things, except when it comes to edge runners. So I had to kind of fill in that. Now, granted, I went with my own storage option as well because I didn't like the big giant edge runner box and all of those stretch goal miniatures. Now they do have a number on the bottom of each one, so their number, like this one's 43, but that does me no good when the card that I pull, because these cards are random. It's like, oh, okay, pull this guy. Well, where is he? Well, now I can tell because I have my own storage solution. Well, he's a techie edge runner, so I painted those guys with that teal, right? And then this box, no, that's the net runner box. This is the techie box, because these guys all have the green bottoms, and you can see the green bottoms, and now it's much easier to find steel, because there he is right there with that green bottom. So again, this my own home storage solution, way better than the storage solution that comes in the game. However, there's still good miniatures, so I guess it's a good problem to have, but that's definitely a criticism of I guess all CMON games, because you have lots and lots of miniatures, and putting them back in that little thing, I get it's just for shipping, but it gets frustrating for sure. Now, we do have a couple of things I believe were Kickstarter exclusive. The Trauma Team and Delamain module. This is a couple of medics as well as the taxi cab. If you played the game, you'd be familiar with both of these. But these are modules that are just little things. Like these guys allow you to heal somebody. These guys can transport you somewhere else. And they're just simple little modules. Now, the cards are really nice because it tells you exactly how to run them. There's lots of different modules that you can add to the game, and these are some simple ones. They just add a tiny little extra bit of complexity, and I like being able to add these, one game after the next. Make the game, because it's a little simple on the base level, so add one extra thing that adds one new rule. Then next game, add that and one more that adds one new rule, and then we'll move on to an expansion. Now, the motor pool has a lot to offer. This is an expansion that I initially thought, hey, these cars look really cool, but then I'm thinking, wait a second, these cars are going to add a ton of new rules, and it's going to be ultra complex to think about driving, until I actually played it and I realized, wait a second, these are really cool cards, but I don't actually have to drive them. They're not as complicated as they seemed. The rules are pretty simple. You can purchase a vehicle, and just like very similar to how you'd purchase an Edge Runner, and that vehicle gets your ring, and it kind of goes with somebody. You don't actually get a whole lot of driving benefit from them as the base module, but they offer some kind of bonuses. It's extra ways to get victory points. It's actually pretty simple rules for them, and it's also a little extra eye candy on the tabletop. I painted these all up, and some of them have pretty nice combat bonuses, like your tank, your basilisk, and your Militech walker here. These things are really cool, and they look awesome on the battlefield, but they're not mandatory. They're optional, but they're fun, and they add a little swag to your game. And I think because they are so simple, that makes for a nice little easy module to spice up the game just a little bit. There's also a lot of other things in here. There's different stories, different cards that will go into the game, there's an edge runner that will deal with vehicles. There's opportunities that deal with vehicles. They have requirements that say you have to deal with vehicles. So there's stuff in here that's going to touch every part of the game, and making vehicles a necessary part of the rest of the game, and you can shuffle those into the existing stuff, like again another Night City tour card and all of those other things like that. So motor pool is optional, but it's kind of light and kind of fun. Let's talk about the Families and Outcasts expansion. Now, this one does add a 5th player extension in the form of the Badlands. This is going to be a board extension that opens up and goes on the bottom right-hand corner of the board, similar to how this module, we'll talk about it right there. It's just going to connect to your board. If you're playing with 5, then this is a very good one. If you want to play with 5 players, this one is a must-have. It's good for that purpose. However, the Badlands is an interesting place because it doesn't have normal district rewards, but it does have a point of interest that allows you, if you control it, you can have access to all 3 different types of buildings, which is something that you'll want to have for certain actions and abilities to do things. Plus, there's certain other requirements that can be benefited by those. So, it's nice. It's also a starting location for the 2 factions that come with it. Again, if you are trying to add, more players, more gangs are certainly a bonus. You got the Aldecaldos and the Wraiths. They both start in the Badlands, and they have some different stuff. They don't build hideouts, and so they're a little bit I guess maybe less fun than some of the other units. They have their own different mechanics, like a lot of other units do, but they also are the only gangs in the game that have custom action discs that are very weird. So you'll have 2 solos for the Wraiths, and then 2 wilds for the Aldecaldos, and so they're a little more advanced. They're not my favorite gangs in the game, although the Aldecaldos was definitely one of my favorite gangs in the video game. So there is certainly that. So you are getting 2 new gangs at least, which is pretty cool, and you're adding that 5th player module. So that's a good thing about the Families and Outcasts. Now, if you backed this on Kickstarter, you also got Pan Am Palmer, who is very, very good and doesn't require this expansion to be included in your game, so you can just include Pan Am normally. She's really awesome and one of my favorite characters from the video game. So it's a shame that she was Kickstarter exclusive, but she was part of this particular expansion if you backed it on Kickstarter. Now the gang warfare is going to give you 3 new gangs plus a new module, which is a pretty good value for that particular expansion. Now some of these gangs are really cool. I'm a particular fan of the animals and of course the Mox, who's probably the highlight of this particular expansion. They're, I guess there's just more of a thematically, I really like their story, and they have only one location with Lizzie's bar, but they improve it, and that was also a pretty key place that you spend some time at during the video game, so I really like the Mox. It also has the Scavengers, which are not a gang I really recommend you playing. Instead, take the Scavengers module, and you can use that as a mutator, and you get to include them in the game differently, but you can't do this module if you're actually going to play as the Scavs, and they have a very unique and different playstyle that does also risk them being totally eliminated from the game early, so you don't necessarily want to play them as your first gang. They're a little bit more advanced. And these are also some of the custom gang holders that I've created. I'll talk more about these later. We also have a Fixers expansion that has Fixers and Engrams, and this one is interesting. It also comes with a couple extra edge runners that you can include as well. So it has a little bit of a lot, and actually at first I thought this was a really bad expansion, but now I think it's okay, having played it a little bit. Basically, what you're getting is you're getting miniatures for different fixers, which are important characters that you talk to. These are guys who get you jobs all throughout Night City, and I've painted them as well. And then you're getting some engrams, which represent like the machine intelligence extracted from somebody's brain that now can get put into your brain or to help you. So these are kind of like rogue AIs, sort of in a way. And you've got another Johnny Silverhand here, and then you've got Alt Cunningham here. So you're only getting a little bit of that, but the cool thing is there are each different modules that you can add very, very easily. The Engram module is nice because you get some of these opportunity cards. You can shuffle them in to the opportunity deck, and when they come out, instead of being the normal colors, it can be, hey, here's Alt Cunningham. You need a corporate secret to purchase her, and then she buffs you. She buffs your hideout. And then there's Johnny Silverhand, which affixes himself to one of your dudes. And when your dudes die in a firefight, you gain 3 street cred. So it's like Johnny Silverhand took over his body and something, or resurrected him, just like the story. So they're simple, they're easy to include. The Fixers module, however, is weird because there's no need for these miniatures at all, other than the fact that, hey, these are recognizable characters from the game and we wanted to make miniatures of them, because it just buffs a zone. It buffs the zone's point of interest, and only ones that have the Fixer point of interest. And since you're in a 1 to 3 player game, only 2 of those are active. So if you're not playing with 4 or more, these other ones are completely off limits to you. However, if you're playing with 4 or more, then these ones are off limits to you, because then these ones become active. So you can never use all of them, which isn't a terrible thing. But the cool thing about this is that it just gives an extra incentive to occupy certain points of interest, even if you weren't going to buy edge runners. So it's just again, it's a simple, easy little module. And while it's not crucial and it's not that big of a deal, I find that when you start adding module after module after module, you add more complexity to the game, and it becomes more enjoyable overall. And of course, it's also cool to have thematic characters if you're a fan of Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I also want to talk about components, and one of my biggest gripes for the game is that this Kickstarter didn't get super funded, so I feel like there probably was more components planned, but the cardboard components are a little bit of an annoyance when I like to deluxify certain games, and they didn't have it for this game. That's not really my biggest problem, though. It's the fact that they didn't give you enough cardboard for this game, and what I mean by that is I like to have every gang and all of their components all together. And if you don't do a custom solution like this, for example, if somebody wants to play Tiger Claws, they have to open up multiple boxes to get lots of different things out. I need some parts of my gang in this box, some parts of my gang in this box, some parts of my gang in this box. For example, if you want your motor pool rings, they're all going to be in here. If you want your drones from the upgraded, in your hideouts upgraded, they're going to be in a whole different box. And then your gang itself is going to be in a whole different box. So instead of having to open up 3 boxes for every player, I just wanted to have hey, you pick a gang, all your stuff is in one box. And these are just simple little containers I got off of Amazon, and then I printed out some gang stuff. Maybe I'll put these up on like Board Game Geek or something like that if somebody else wants to do something, because it's just a simple file. But the idea is I want to be able to hand you this box if you're playing and say, here's everything you need for your gang. But I can't do that because while they gave us a lot of components for the game, they didn't give us enough for every gang. There's a couple of key aspects to that. One of those key aspects is the action discs. They gave us enough for a 5-player game, but they did not give us enough of these for one for every gang. And so they're close. We have almost enough for every gang to have their own set of action discs, but not quite. And that's really frustrating to me. And so I probably will be looking to third-party extra tokens or something like that if anybody's making these. But I would love to just say, here, you can open this up and now you can, populate your board and everything like that. But now I have to have a whole separate storage for these since there's just not enough to go around for every gang. The other thing is the extra drones that they gave out. There's drones, but there's not enough drones for every gang to have their custom drones. And I feel like that, the weird thing about it is that there's, you can have like 4 drones, but there's like 5 of each type, so it doesn't match. It's not like each gang would want one of every type of drone. It's more like, hey, these are cool drones for Maelstrom, these are cool drones for Tiger Claws, etc. And I feel like maybe that was going to be an expansion that happened, but there are enough drones to play the game. But if you have a 5-player game, you're going to have to be mixing and matching drones, and you're going to have to open them up and give them. Every gang does have their own custom drone bases, but there aren't enough drones to go on every base. So that's kind of annoying, but you do have the cardboard. So, I've got all these cardboard drone tokens. So I could certainly do that with every gang, but I didn't get the deluxe components. So this way I could use cardboard pieces. I wanted to use deluxe pieces, and there's not enough of that. So that's a little miniature gripe for the way that they kind of distributed this and allocated quantities.
So that is Cyberpunk 2077 Gangs of Night City. I really do enjoy the game, and I really think it's a shame that certain Kickstarter exclusive characters were made Kickstarter exclusive. I think one of the big things about the game that I enjoy so much is the tie-in to the video game. I think the IP, the setting, and that tie-in is one of the things that really elevates the game beyond just being a mechanic salad that it is, into something that's really memorable and spectacular for my personal tastes. But that's, I think, also one of my biggest complaints is that they made certain characters Kickstarter exclusive, which means that if you're going to purchase this on a store shelf and get a retail version, if you're a big fan of the game, you're going to be missing crucial characters like V, who's the main character of the game, was made Kickstarter exclusive. Adam Smasher, who's like the main villain of the game, was made Kickstarter exclusive. Pan Am Palmer, who's one of 2 main love interests in the game, was also made Kickstarter exclusive. And that's really a shame, because I think that's one of the biggest draws for me is that tie-in to the game, and it's kind of a shame. I do hope it comes back to Kickstarter, though. I hope that for people who may pick up a retail copy that say, hey, where's V? Where's Adam Smasher? Where's Pan Am? You've got Judy, you've got certain great characters, but you don't have all of those. I hope it comes back to Kickstarter, because there's a lot of things that I think it could really use. I feel like there's, Phantom Liberty, for example. Definitely come back and do more with that. Edge Runners, popular TV show. Lots of hooks for that in the game. Extra components like those acrylic tokens, a playmat is another thing. More drones, things like that. Great things that they could do if they bring it back to Kickstarter. Possibly other gangs, NCPD, lots of other different ways to play. There's so much more that the world, in that world, that could fit into this game. I'd love to see them do more of that. And I'd love to see them also take some of the mechanics that I was talking about and make them a little more detailed. Like have a little bit more with combat. Maybe have a module that lets you have more than 4 cards. Maybe have a module that rewards bonus points for combat, so you can have more of a combat based a lot of little things like that they could do. And I think there's a great opportunity for them to do that. Do reprints and bring the game back to Kickstarter. I think that would be awesome. But overall, I enjoyed the game. Hopefully you like it too. If you did like what you see here, I have other videos for Cyberpunk 2077, Gangs of Night City, and we'll be covering other Cyberpunk 2077 games and Cyberpunk games in general. So, of course, I do cover a lot of Star Wars and sci-fi games, but we do a lot of Cyberpunk on here also as well. I'm going to put some links over here. We're also doing that $25 Amazon gift card giveaway, so if you want to have a chance to enter to win that, you just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. That's going to be running until about next week, so make sure you watch. I usually announce winners towards the end of my videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing and help make this whole channel possible. I will talk to you later. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. The spice must flow. And always wash your socks. Have a great day.